Hi, so my name is DJ Sellarole, and I spent the last 4 years teaching in helena-west, Arkansas at Central High School. I want to tell you about a group of students that really changed a community with their work, right? And this is why CPN is going to work. Norman and Tamonte were two of the original members of the Rap Squad, which is a group that we started to allow students an opportunity to show the power that they already had within, that the school was not allowing them to show on the outside, right? Not by any fault of the administration, not by any fault of the teachers. It just wasn't an opportunity that was at the school. So the kids came and they said, hey, we'd like to have an opportunity for a rap squad, right? So we built a little studio in the room. We started recording music. The music started to get popular. Now, fast forward 4 years, the students have 20,000 views, all these songs, all this popularity. Someone shot a documentary about them that might blow up. Who knows? I hope so. But long story short, what that did is it set the stage for dialogue and it set the stage for conversation. So they made it okay to have emotions, right? Which in schools like Central, which are very hard hit by systemic poverty, by systemic racism, right? Students often have to carry a lot of trauma that they don't feel like they're allowed to express. Like they're not allowed to push back against the things that they see are broken, right? So the Rap Squad was a huge part of that because they started to say, hey, look, stuff's broken. And this is how we feel. And this is how it should be better. And this is how we represent ourselves, right? And that was the first time that really started to happen, that I saw. Not that it didn't happen in other ways or other classrooms. It just happened in such a concerted way and in such a way that the students vibed with. And then what that did is it opened up the right for kids to show true emotion. That led kids to sharing poetry, right? And the same students that were on the Rap Squad started writing poetry for the Central Cipher, which was a magazine that we started with a couple other teachers and a couple other students. And that spread the dialogue even further. So more students started to throw in their voice, things that they were noticing about race, about the way that they were being treated in this town that's still segregated in 2017. Okay? The public school is still 98% black. The private school is still 100% white. That's still the reality. So as the students started to dialogue and actually share these emotions that had been suppressed, it built their own power that they already had and it started to connect them to each other, right? Then all of a sudden came a millage vote. None of us knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. Nobody knew. And it failed by 13 votes. And then all of a sudden we find out that this millage was to rebuild a new school. And we're like, wow, why didn't we really know about that? Why didn't we push for that? So Mr. Bagley, who is the school board president, he goes ahead and starts this huge campaign to push for a second vote. The problem was all the property owners that the millage tax would increase the tax for are the ones generally who are sending their students to DeSoto, that private school that I told you about, right? So they don't want their taxes to go up. And their property taxes are probably pretty huge because a lot of them are farmers. And those are the big landowners in helena-west Helena. So once we started to kind of like talk about that reality and talk about that history of Jim Crow era segregation into de facto segregation with the private school and the public school, once we got to that point, that's where the students started to be like, well, now that we're angry, like, what do we do? Like, we're angry, like, what now, Mr. Sellarole, right? And that was kind of the attitude. But that was a very important part of it because it was the students building their own power and voice and making it okay to share emotions and okay to share ideas. So then an extremely strong Vote No campaign came out. And they started putting all these Vote No signs all over the city. And the students, that really catalyzed them because they were like, wait a minute, who are these people who so badly don't want us to have a new school? Who are these people that so badly don't want us to be out of classrooms that have black mold and fungus and roaches and rot, right? Who are these people that don't want us to have a new school so bad? And they started to ask those questions. And as we discussed the history and who these people were, we started in my pre-AP class to look at civil disobedience. And we looked at a very broad spectrum. We looked at Gandhi, we looked at Malcolm X, we looked at Stokely Carmichael, we looked at MLK, we looked at Guy Fawkes. We looked at all these different acts that were wrong at the time and brought about huge change and showed people what was truly wrong. So as we did that, the students were like, okay, cool. Like, this is awesome. We want to do this. We want to disobey. Like, we want to go ahead and prove them that we have the power. So as we discussed how to do that, right? Zaria was sitting in the back of class on Facebook, which she shouldn't have been on. And she all of a sudden sees, oh, wow, hey, look, Mr. Sellarole, the kids in Memphis walked out to support their millage vote. And that was it. From that was a spark. That was a seed. And everybody just got behind it. And all these powerful organizers, Datrion, Shamar, Monte, Norman, Kobe, all these kids, they just came together, Christian, they just came together so strong. And they started to talk and spread the ideas and convince their other students. And they built a private group meet so that they could talk to each other. And they had a Saturday meeting to make the posters for the walkout. And they made their own rules. They kicked me out of the group because they were like, yeah, we need to have our own voice. And like, I just gave them advice and I stayed out. And, it was a true community moment where the kids were like, you know what? You're right. This is our community. Get out. Like, we're going to take care of it now. Thank you. And that was, to me, the most powerful part. They were like, okay, teacher, cool. Like, you're done. And like, that's what teaching should be, right? They learned. And it's like, bye, my job's done. And that's what I was able to do. Like, I didn't take the first steps of the walkout. I was there on the sidewalk and the principal has a certain job, right? So he was obviously not wanting the students to go walking off campus. But watching Datrion take that step, right? He was the first student. He looked at me and I looked at him and I was like, well, and I shrugged and I looked at him like, it's your choice, right? Because we talked about that. It has to be his choice, right? Because it's the students seizing power, right? So Datrion just took that first step and it was just such a powerful movement because this one slight, small, studious student who's just so like to himself and like would so much rather like be in a library than at a party, which is what I'm like too. He goes and takes his courageous first step. And all of a sudden all these big football boys are like, oh, well, Datrion's going to do it. Here we go. Like, that's our leader. And they marched behind him. And then the younger kids were hesitant. They weren't sure if they were going to come or not. And then Monte and Norman, these two huge football players, popular on the rap squad, popular on the Central Cypher, they go, let's go, everybody, let's go. And all these kids just, boom, and they just followed. And just watching that happen, it's like instantly they picked a leader. They were like, wow, those are our leaders. And they listened to them. It wasn't wild. Nothing bad happened. Nobody went running around. Nobody ditched. They went out to the front curb. They formed a line. They held their signs. 250 kids ended up walking out. The administration, following like the protocols that they're used to, they went directly to suspensions, right? And they were like, okay, like everybody who's walked out is going to get a 15-day suspension, took it down on the list. And that actually turned out to be one of the most beneficial things that happened, even though that was one of the worst things that felt like it could have happened at the moment. Because what happened is that all these parents came out to the school and they were like, hey, like our kids chose to do something and they did it for themselves and they did it for their community. Why are they being punished for this? And the community said that so strongly that they dropped it all the way down to 3 hours of community service for each kid, 2 or 3 hours of community service. Then the students used that community service to go door to door and spread the vote, right? And this was like 3 days before the vote. Then we end up winning by like 79 votes. So it was truly a student-powered movement. And now they're rebuilding that school right now for like $28 million, I think. It's somewhere around that range. $27 to $28 million. State-of-the-art facility is being built right now. Kids are going to class still, walking by, watching the class get knocked down, being rebuilt based on the actions that they took and based on the information they were able to spread. So that's what community organizing is. It's not always clean. It's often really messy. It's often really frustrating. Like that, I don't want to give the idea that that was a perfect story either, right? Like there were a lot of moments where it was falling apart. Kids are like, oh, like we're arguing too much. I don't know if anyone agrees. Like the day before, one of my students private messaged me and he was like, I don't know if this is going to work. So people are falling apart. Like it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And I was just like, hey, look, you guys have the power. You have the plan. Breathe, do it, like be powerful. And they did it. And that's the point. Like a lot of the times it's just taking those hard steps to unify people around an idea and then go and do it. And that's like just connecting those dots going back of how the rap squad helps open up emotion and helped open up expression and how that led into the poetic movement and how that led into the expression movement at the school and then how that allowed students to discuss the need for a walkout and the need for a new school and the need to push back against this system that has obviously been ignoring their community for the entirety of their school, their time in school, right? And just watching my students be like one of my students, Shamar, he was like, I don't want to have a class reunion. I want to have a walkout reunion. And to me, that's so powerful. Like, that's the best thing he could have ever said to me as a teacher. Like, because that is what the job should be, right? And that's what organizing should be. It should be students finding their power internally and being allowed to express it and being allowed to connect their power to the rest of the power of the world and be able to feel connected and competent and community, right? That's what happened because the students were able to come together through their emotions, through their feeling, and through their thought. So that's what the Citizens Power Network is going to be about. It's about telling kids, you have power. There's so many programs that come into a classroom and they're like, we're here to empower you guys. We're going to pump you up. We're going to fill you up with all this information. Or the flip side, the teacher that's like, you need to take this education I'm giving you. It's a privilege. Take it, right? Both of those are wrong. It's, you have power. Let's find out what your unique power is. Let's mold it. Let's find out who you really are. Let's find out what you can push this world to be, right? Let's see what new envelope of existence you can form for yourself in this crazy world, right? And that's what they did. They're like, hey, we're tired of this school. We're tired of hearing people talk trash about us. We're tired of people, talking down on us. And they took action. And that action led to real change. And that's how it works. That's what community organizing is. It's listening to the actual community, asking what's wrong, what do you want to see fixed, and then pressuring politicians to actually do their job and make that happen. Because too many times they're only pushing the things that are going to help them get reelected or are going to help them get more funding, right? And that's what our job is, to make sure that they don't do that. I think it's obvious that civic engagement works. Yeah. If we hadn't mobilized and we hadn't gotten out to that vote, those kids would be sitting in a school full of black mold and fungus right now. Like, it's that simple, and like sometimes we make it too complicated. It's really that simple. Like, we just have to find the issues that are most pressing, listen to the people suffering from them, mobilize, and change. That's it. And that's what CPN's about.